Welcome back to part two, talking to Enzo about his Tactical Brigade orcs. Now we're going to get into every game that he had, starting with the first one. Round one, take and hold on tipping point. And you had the WTC terrain
Oh
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
Killings on WTC was that was painful.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not aware, because there's over 500 tables, FLG just literally doesn't have enough terrain of a single type to run a single type of terrain per round, and therefore you don't know what you're going to get. You might just get the normal GW would have been layout one. They have their own custom terrain, or you get WTC. And unfortunately, Enzo got WTC, which is a heck of a lot more terrain.
Yeah, I think like WTC. I've practiced on WTC plenty of times with orcs. Funny enough, day two WTC was actually really good for my army. If I got
Yeah.
it, I didn't get it, but it would have been really good because there's a kill box in the middle for the flash kits. But day one WTC was a little rough. And it mainly affects the bad matchups, actually. Good matchups are still good matchups on WTC terrain, but I find if you're playing big vehicles or playing like just like big, like lots of stuff, your bad matchups just get a little bit harder because it's easier to hide. And I do want to specify this is WTC terrain using GW terrain rules,
Yes.
which WTC terrain was not meant for this.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest complaint with it, because you could do the 1.1 inches off of the wall thing on a much bigger wall.
Yeah, it's also the fact that, like, if you're going to an event which is a WTC event, you build your list around it, and there's also, it's usually a teams event where you
You
have
could
a certain.
select,
Yeah.
like, you have some people that play for matchups, you have some people that play for tables. And
Exactly. And you can decide ahead of time which of those you're going to build for. If you're building a singles list where you might be, it's really tough, and it got me too, but we'll talk about that later on mine. So yeah, who were you facing round one?
round one, I was facing Leagues of Votan.
uh
Um, this was a really weird matchup. It was one of the things where my army, like some things in my army, were able to
right.
kill really well. Some things not as much. But the big things, so redeploying on WTC is like literally there's like on one other pocket I can put a kill rig, so it's very telegraphed where I'm gonna put a kill rig. And also when I'm facing a lot of Sagittars, yeah, it gets frustrating. Those things kill rigs really easily, really easily. They have enough AP to.
Yeah.
Anything has enough AP to kill orcs. To be fair,
And they have there's just a lot of efficiency in what they have. I mean, they have the stuff to
yeah,
kill the big stuff, they have the volume to kill the little stuff, they have the armor in places that where it makes, they have 2-up armor all over the place. It's
yeah. It was so I was looking down 5 Sagittars, 2 Hecaton land fortresses. Um, I think so. There were a couple. This was my only loss. There were a couple mistakes I made that I think were like really big. One was I embarked Beast Naga boys into a kill rig to try to get more movement out of them, and suddenly the kill rig evaporates as I predicted, and well, on WTC terrain, a lot of things are straight on the ruins, and there's not really many hills and stuff, or like many small L bends for you to like hide stuff in after
yeah.
you disembark. Um, WTC is not friendly to oval base, to night bases in particular, which is what a kill rig is on. And it was just the worst possible situation. Suddenly, a kill rig, 155 point unit, my opponent gets to pick up 300 points of my army instead of 150. Big mistake there. Oh
Yeah.
well.
And
And I had pre-planned also to not put stuff in the kill rig, and I second guessed myself. And that is what happens when you second guess yourself.
yeah.
Stick to your game plan.
And especially with this particular one, even though it's a lot of terrain, you actually do have some pretty nasty shooting lanes. And so if they have any kind of range, I mean, Votan doesn't have exceptional range, but they can take advantage of there's some big open spaces in the middle there.
Yeah. The other big thing was the amount of scout moves that they get is really crazy. Mainly just because they also stocked up on a lot of bikes. Bikes are strength 6. I hate that as an orc player.
Yeah.
If you want to kill orcs, just take strength 6 volume of fire, and you will pick up about 2 squads a turn with that. 1 on your turn and 1 on Overwatch.
Yep, that's what I was saying about the efficiency. And the other thing about the scout move, and it's funny because it actually came up later where one of my opponents got this wrong, and I called him out on it. The redeploy happens before the game starts, meaning you can't block a scout move.
Yeah. So I just had to keep my commandos out in the open, which I really don't want to do, but I also don't want him shooting my face. So
yeah, that's when having two infiltrators is nice, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, but even then, 1 unit of infiltrators going out to die is something I have to do. I technically have 2 infiltrators. One of them's a lone up in Snickrot. So that is something I can do. Snickrot still does objectives and stuff. It wasn't that bad, but it was rough. The other big thing that I did is that I way overcommitted a shooting activation too. Where I was shooting a tank buster unit, the big mech with shock attack gun, and they have a pulsar rocket rule. So once per battle war gear, that gives you +1 strength and +1 AP to the entire unit. All of the guns are strength 9, and they go to strength 10, and they all get an extra AP. Now the thing is, the rocket launches, it brings to 10-3-3. It's pretty good. That's a Forge Fiend at that point with 5 procs of blast. If you're shooting at Terminators or whatever, that can pick up a lot of vehicles. The crazy one is the shock attack gun, because you get that to strength 10, AP 5, and it's D6 damage.
It's like a long range Melta, basically.
No, it straight punches. Punched. It's a 60-inch range gun as well. It would punch any of his vehicles, even if they were in cover, aside from the land forts. And so my mistake that I made there was I committed in the rockets and a shock attack gun to 1 Sagittar. I don't normally say to people, when I'm teaching, I tell people not to split fire, but this was one of the situations where I should have split fire. And the way that you make that happen is I probably should have tried a little bit harder to find a route where I can maybe use a bomb squig or maybe throw a grenade or find a way just to do 2 or 3 mortals where I'm confident splitting fire at that point, because I got to make it so that I have the full activation of the unit of rocket launches somewhere, and then potentially create an opening for the shock attack gun. What actually happened is I shot the whole unit. The shock attack gun picked up the Sagittar before a single rocket even was rolled.
Yeah, I think the other thing there is also, if possible, and it's not always possible, but getting positioning where you have multiple targets so that if the split fire unit doesn't pick up, or you have multiple targets, or you have multiple things that can shoot at what you want dead. So if for some reason the split fire doesn't take care of it, you do have backup.
Oh yeah, no, and I absolutely had the backup too. I had it set up, and I did have line of sight to 4 Sagittars. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
and I had 2 of these units. I probably could have tried to find a way to plague some mortals onto it, and I think that would have been the game winner. The real thing, though, that my opponent did to kind of drive, twist the knife, that they were very good, was my Flash Gitz unit. Those Cathodian Berserks have mole launchers, and oh my god, I did not know how annoying those things can be. My opponent shot all 3 Cathodian Berserk units into the Flash Gitz and just tried to roll the 4 up so that I could get -2 inches to the movement, and that just broke the back. I was forced to heroic into a fight on death unit to get movement on the Flash Gitz. Otherwise, they were never going to actually activate. And I asked my opponent, do you think this was correct? He was like, oh yeah, they weren't going anywhere otherwise. And you were, at that point, I'm like, oh, I'm playing with 1,700 points, not 2,000.
Yeah. That sounds like a rough one. So
It was. It was an avoidable rough one, definitely.
but like
It would have been.
even
It's one of
despite
those things that even like I don't know if it would have gotten me the win either.
sure, and but there's no way of ever knowing. But and even with the prep that you did, because Tactical Brigade just hasn't been around that long. You can do a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
you can do a lot of reps, but you'll never get as many reps as if you've been playing it for 6-9 months or something, and that's when
Yeah.
things like the split fire issue probably won't that you'll
I mean, we just got tank busted too. Like that's the other
exactly
one. Like it's such a new unit, so it's like it's pretty hard to math out everything there. Definitely something I'm gonna like try. I think my threshold that I realized was like if you're wounding the thing on 3s, then I think the tank busters unit does pick it up if it has the AP boost as well. Like, and you're wounding on 3s, I think that's when you start considering splitting fire. Because otherwise, like my math was totally right on the shooting for the unit. Otherwise,
yeah, those heuristics, the rules of thumb really go a long way when you're when you have a long event and it's timed and you don't have the time to think about it too long.
absolutely, and it's like it's one of the things that getting the reps in is important on. I knew I wanted to. I was fighting an uphill battle with Brigade on that, but like I was like, you know what? I'm putting in the work. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, and now that you got the loss out of the way, we can go on to all the wins.
Yeah. All right.
So round 2, linchpin, where
Yeah.
you have to hold your home to score more points on the middle, and same deployment, but this you said was an FLG layout. So
Yup.
kind of like GW for people who are looking at
FLG
this,
was
but not
it's
exactly.
GW. It's GW without footprints, basically. Um.
Yeah, I didn't actually play on it this time, but it is super wonky. And if you don't look at they have to actually draw on the layout like what you can draw line of sight through and what you cannot, and it is not intuitive.
Not intuitive, but helpful nevertheless.
Yes, yeah, but you have if you ever find yourself on this terrain, like look at what and make sure that you and your opponent both agree ahead of time, because I lost the first time I ever played on one of these at BAO. I lost simply because I hadn't done that and I thought I could see through something that I couldn't.
Yep. So yeah, game 2, this is when like I start like getting into the flow, enter the flow state, and just like start just going, all right, I got the loss out of the way. We're just gonna play my heart out and see what I can get, and still try to go for best in faction, which was my goal. Didn't get it, but either way, got best in detachment at least out of 28. So I'm happy. Game 2, I was into Dread Mob Orc.
Ah,
This was a weird matchup. This was so unfair. It was. It just stealth makes the army-wide stealth essentially just like it's just backbreaking. If you have any minuses to hit into orcs, they're never going to shoot you. Aside from Tactical Brigade that can get around that now.
right. Yeah,
But
that's
like
oof.
it was like my opponent basically like I put down a kill run to they had 1 unit of rocket launcher killicans. They had 15 killicans, by the way. They had and the other 9 were Grotzukas for chaff clear.
Ouch.
Which
Yeah,
honestly, you know what? No shade, it did do that really well. And it was just like
sure.
when he rolled his number of attacks, I'm like, I'm just gonna pick up my unit. And I looked at the profile. I didn't realize they have innate ignores cover. I'm like, oh, you can pick up Marines with that. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, unless you were really expecting to see GSC like every round, I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm still with you on that. Like, I think it was definitely one in list building.
Yeah, because also like the Rockets have blast, so they're pretty good at clearing chaff too.
Not that great, actually.
Oh, okay.
Not
Well,
in the reality is that the cans like you don't have 5 rocket launches like you do with tank busters.
got it.
Like
Yeah.
or the rate that you're paying for them is really rough. My opponent also, I don't think they knew the tech of like you have to reserve killicans, otherwise you're never getting a shooting angle on them and they're way too slow.
Yeah, they're
And so
not
my
that
opponent
hard to
didn't.
kill either.
Yeah, no, they're only like T6. Like T6 with a 4-up save.
Yeah.
4-up, 6-up invuln, like that was easy. This, like, I literally, like, I baited out the can deployment with the kill rig, and then I redeployed the kill rig, and my opponent's ankles were broken at that point. I turned 3. I didn't even need the WA to move block them. They did not score primary until I let them, after I knew I secured the game on turn 4. And I was like, all right, I'm going to let them score primary now because I don't need to push this big win. I have already maxed out my points, and yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's then move on to round 3, Scorched Earth, and you finally got a GW layout. Also,
Woo!
yeah, and the good one too. Layout 1 is like my favorite.
Dude, layout 1 it just promotes so much interaction that I absolutely love. It's just a fun map to play on because you will end up fighting on that map. Like,
Yeah, but
people.
it's fair for everyone. It's fair for the melee armies. They have a place to stage. It's fair for the shooting armies. There's like a good lane, couple lanes, worth contesting. It's just, this is like, if I only ever played on layout 1 at tournaments, I would actually be totally happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this game was into Ret Cadre Tau. So one of my closest friends, John, who also went to the tournament with me, I plays Tau, and yeah, I have a lot of reps into Tau. This is going to come into play because, funny enough, I knew exactly how to screen out his ghost kills. I used to redeploy on my commandos to do that and then safely bring them to cover. I also rearranged where the kill rigs were once again, just because it's just like, oh, you line up your guns to shoot me or whatever. I'll totally do that. Fine. And I rearranged stuff to screen them out. The big one, actually, that I do want to talk about with this game was my knowledge into Tau kind of made me realize that this opponent was playing a lot of pre-codex Tau rules.
Uh-oh.
And this is where the social practices of Warhammer really do come in, and where part of the practice, like, we're not taking time off from the social practice during your practice games with friends, like not slacking on that with your friends, really comes in. Because the thing is that you need a way to tactfully tell your opponent in a non-accusatory way, hey, I'm not sure if this is right. The thing I
Yeah.
knew for a fact wasn't right was 24-inch plasma range. I know it's 18 inches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I totally get it. That's a human mistake that we can make. And I am
Well,
going to give my opponent the benefit of the doubt. Not
when there's a good,
not to mention,
yeah, if you have a good story, right? Like, not story, but like if there's a reasonable explanation of, okay, I happen to know that you're playing, with index, like the index rules and things change. So I'm just, I'm not accusing you. I totally get it that, you got confused. That's
mhm. Yeah, like one of the best things that I think I'll do it is in this case it was actually very easy because I did have a friend that played Tau, but you can just lie and say, oh, hey, my friend plays this faction and I think he's been playing it wrong. Can you show me so that I can tell him?
Yeah, that is a really good one.
Yeah. Funny enough, the one that he actually did get right on the rules, I didn't realize that the ruin visibility, you have to be wholly within to see through a ruin for a vehicle, excluding walkers.
Okay, so according to certain interpretations, but yes, it's a weird, that is how FLG ruled it.
Yep.
Don't necessarily take that home.
I don't either. Yeah, don't. It's an ask your TO thing.
Yeah, because like it's something that, like, because of an image that may or may not have even just been like kind of a typo, but because it's a GW released image in an errata somewhere, you could kind of read it that way, and FLG did read it that way.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff that you asked the TO about, but this is like it's one of the things that it was like be ready for that thing. Like you're not really like there's just you need a way to not upset your opponent while doing this and while asking them, hey, can you clarify this rule?
Yeah, the other one, that works for me if it happens to be a faction that I also play a bunch is I can just say, oh, I used to make that same mistake. I used to think, like, I used to misinterpret it that same way, but somebody told me that I was playing it wrong, and so that's how I learned. But it is a tough one, and like, what can happen is if you call out something, then they start calling out things just cause, whether or not you actually have it wrong. And I mean, I hope you didn't have any bad matches that way. I actually didn't this LVO, but our friend Clint did. But we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah.
So okay,
No, that was like, this was the closest to that I could have gotten. It was still a fun game, but it was fun in the way that there were lots of shiny vehicles for me to use all my anti-vehicle rules to break. Crisis suits die on Overwatch to flash kits. It is so funny every time it happens, and every time that somebody's jaw drops when I fire Overwatch with the flash kits, that my opponent full swung 2,000 points of Tau basically to hit flash kits. And I'm like, sure, have them. And to be fair, it is a unit that if you are allowed to activate over 5 turns of the game with it, plus like 2 or 3 Overwatches, you win the game off its back. Like, it is just so impactful that like it will win you the game on its own if it is unanswered.
Yeah. Tower in a funny place, Ret Cadre in particular. So
Yeah. The Ret Cadre, like, I mean, here's the thing. I don't really care that you have higher. The biggest thing was actually the higher strength actually did make a big difference into me. Because it like put all of his strength 9 stuff on strength 10 into the kill rigs, which they're T10.
yeah, I know. I have that same breakpoint with the Silent King being T10, but yeah. What are you gonna do? So, but you won.
Yeah, it was really like off the redeploy again, and also just off like I just lined up a lot of great charges with the beast bosses. He just didn't have enough stuff, and that was the big thing. Like, it was just like the sheer amount of stuff in this list. Like, I could just do the thing of, I'm gonna put a unit of Grots out on the objective. What's the easiest thing you have in your list to kill Grots with? Oh, breachers. Do you really want to bring out your breachers to kill some Gretchen? Do you really want to bring down crisis suits to kill Gretchen? He did not have a unit capable of killing 11 Gretchen that was less than 100 points.
Yeah, I know that list in particular, like auxiliary cadre, totally. The auxiliary cadre totally has answers for that, but Ret cadre everything is so expensive.
Even then, Gretchen with stealth is a really funny thing sometimes.
Yeah, that's just, you throw some carnivores at them. You could do it, but
like if you can melee them, you can.
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, in melee, I mean.
Yeah, but even then, at that point, you've brought out your thing, and I still have other layers of cheap stuff to deal with that, which was kind of the idea behind this list. We'll get into that with the next game, funny enough.
So this is day 2. You've had hopefully a good night's sleep.
No, I didn't.
No, me neither. It was a new deployment, a not as good deployment, if you ask me. I much prefer.
You see, I loved day 2. Day 2 was the layouts are so much better for me on day 2.
It's so you had an FLG one again. It's a kind of weird one, because it's just the best approximation of what's supposed to be layout 6. But yeah, why don't you go into it?
It really isn't. Yeah. So, okay, this game is simultaneously the game I am most proud of and the game that was also the absolute luckiest game. Like, everything that needed to go right went right, and it was just like there were so many things that like could have happened that could have just made me lose on the spot. So this was Purge the Foe.
Yeah,
I was playing into probably the bane of my army's existence, a Battle Shock detachment. I was playing into Nurgle Demons with a new Plague Legion.
So, yeah, because I'm thinking, all right, did they have big demons, or was it How were they playing it?
No, Nurgling Jail.
Okay, so that does, I think, make Purge a little bit easier, right? Because if you,
On you see, great unclean ones. Do you want to know the easiest way to kill orcs?
sure, volume of fire.
Torrent.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
Torrent
torrent. Yeah.
specifically. This list in particular, Torrent. Great unclean ones just have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Way too much of that.
I mean, Purge is such a hard one for your list because, you
I have
have to,
stuff.
you have stuff that you have to be trading, and
Now, I will say the godsend on Purge is flash kits. Because you have an Overwatch piece, you have a way to play on your opponent's turn. It is a powerful answer to a lot of Purge. And also, this list does have enough OC in the form of Gretchen, Beast Boys, and the That's Our stratagem. It's a thing you can use in the command phase. Which in either player's command phase, as long as you have something in engagement range, you can give +1 OC to that unit. Because of that, like there is absolutely play that you have into at least like scoring the hold more. You can take it from that angle and just like grind them down on secondaries at that point. I was really lucky. I went second on this. I do not think I could have won if I went first. Going second on Purge is really, really good because you get to dictate the flow of like, oh, how much that you need to kill, especially when you have an Overwatch piece. Then you can do that, and like, it was just more backbreaking because I could just go, all right, I score kill 1, and I say that to my opponent during their turn.
yeah.
My opponent was running what is it, 3 6-mans of Nurglings. They were running 50 Plague Bears, 2 Great Unclean Ones in Rodigus, and some Beasts of Nurgle. Like, this was Nurgling jail. I had to use Gretchen to screen out charges on the Nurglings on stuff in my deployment zone. I had to desperate escape Gretchen intentionally to just make space for my units because I needed to gain ground.
Did you deploy first or second?
I deployed first.
Okay, so there's that at least.
Oh yeah, no, that was another saving grace.
Yeah.
And then I had some really lucky like charges into like greater demons that just I couldn't have done without. And this was like where Beast Snaggers were the MVPs because lethal hits for a CP. Also fall back in charge. I killed a great unclean one over 2 turns with just a fall back in charge beast boss just because dev wounds, and just the look on my opponent's face when I say 8 dev wounds, 12 dev wounds.
And this detachment, they don't have the feel no pain on that.
They have a 6-up.
Sure, but the difference between a 4-up and a 6-up is big.
I mean, I could still kill the 4-up. It's still the beast. That's why I run the beast snagga unit too.
But it does take a bit longer, and it might just not go your way, right? Because like a 6-up tends to just kind of go mathematically. A 4-up, and you could just roll nothing but 4-ups.
You can just get scammed. Yeah, absolutely. So this was definitely one of the ones like I gave myself every opportunity to like get those lucky rolls. I hit those lucky rolls. So like you could say I was lucky, but the other thing was like it's the thing of being part of playing Warhammer, I think, is also giving yourself opportunities to get those crazy dice stories.
Yeah, you have to be in a position to capitalize on a good roll. Like if it's like, oh man, I made a 12-inch charge, but you have like 2 units left on the board, or like it was, yeah, you if you had just played better and you didn't need a 12-inch charge to begin with, or whatever. I totally agree. It's making your own luck.
I liken it to what you do. Like if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, it's like playing to your out. Right? Like, you know that this one thing can save you. So you're going to try everything in your power to make that thing as consistent as possible.
Yeah, people do that against me all the time. It's very annoying.
Fair enough. But yeah, no. So I was proud of how I played on this game. I should not have won this game, but
well, nicely done on that. Let's
yeah.
Let's go to round 5. Back on
Yeah.
G-Dub.
GW, the
The
ritual with
Ritual. Ugh.
Crucible Battle. This was funny. This was really fun. I was into Bridgehead Guard. Um,
Oh, interesting.
so this was really weird. There were so many orders, and
This is like
but
something out of a this is like something out of a Black Citadel book. I mean,
absolutely no. This I had so much fun with this. So my opponent was running 2 tank commanders. They were running Ursula Creed with Cadian shock troops, 45 Tempestus Scions with command squads, each leading the 10 mans basically. Um, they were running some rattlings. They actually really clever. A piece that I actually was curious about. They ran a 5-man Grey Knight Terminator squad to just be something that's annoying to kill. That just walks up and just buys you time so that you can get good reserve points. Which, you know what, solid actually.
yeah.
They were running Gaunt's Ghosts as well. And they just had as much stuff as me. Turns out my stuff is better.
Yeah.
The reality is that with the redeploy, I did the same thing I would do to a lot of opponents. I put a kill rig on the flank. Crucible of Battle, this layout 6 had a really, really lovely pocket where it makes it so tempting for you to deploy a tank, like an anti-tank piece, on your natural expansion objective flank. And when you would do that, right, if I put a tank right on the line in the firing lane, it is so tempting to do that. And oh no, what are you gonna do? It's you just put that, you get an easy angle, you just cut it with a sliver of your model, kill the thing, and then basically not get shot back because you have range. Cool. Everybody's fantasy, right? Well, it turns out that this specific staging location that's kind of on this map, this staging location, if I were to redeploy that tank to the middle and give you no targets on that flank, well, suddenly your only valid target brings you to a spot that you basically are seen by literally everything. And that is exactly what happened to my opponent. In addition, the other thing I did, I used commandos to screen out his rattling deployment. And then because commandos aren't really that good at actually hitting things, they're good for having a bomb squig. And because they have an up down, I knew I needed to screen out a 6-inch deep strike every turn of the game. So I actually brought them in my backfield with a redeploy instead of using a Beast Snagaboy unit or something else. I actually just used them because I could just up down them and get them where they need to be later. And then basically once Scions came down and I had a good enough WA turn, I just lined it up so I could kill one unit on the charge and tag another so that they could bring it up. And that was pretty good.
And that is also another one where, I mean, I would absolutely expect the Flash Gitz to pick up Scions in Overwatch.
My opponent was actually pretty smart around. That was the one thing they positioned around really well. I actually didn't really get to Overwatch much with the Flash Gitz unit.
So they
and
respected
the thing
it.
is they respected it. They did have to feed it a unit. That's the thing. So I forget. There's an enhancement there that basically it's the no Overwatch enhancement or whatever. I actually had to respect that one myself. So I needed to screen out my Flash Gitz and keep them safe because otherwise they just get to drop and I could tell that my opponent was looking for an angle on the Flash Gitz too with that no Overwatch unit because whoever shoots first is going to kill the other in that case because Scions just have the volume of fire to actually handle that. It was a really weird game. Scions actually killed kill rigs with las guns. It was pretty funny. And yeah, I definitely think my opponent took a secret mission on the ritual, which I actually think is a big mistake
Oh,
because
yeah. Yeah, that is actually.
because everybody's getting 50 primary on the ritual. So if you're just handicapping yourself.
Yeah.
It was kind of it was one of the things where I actually I had so much stuff that they couldn't get ritual actions in funny enough. They just needed to devote so much of their army to getting angles on me and playing the clamshell game along with me. That it's like I just had the cheaper stuff that just worked out better. They missed a ritual action or two, and then I suddenly started shooting them off of points. And like, I actually it's funny, without the secret mission, I think they could have gotten to 45 primary without the secret mission. But I think the thing is that they were also going first too. So like,
Which
it
mission
was
did they
really
take?
they took Unbroken Wall. So like, very easy to do on the ritual. Don't get me wrong. So if you're like ever losing like if you're in teams and you're losing absolutely terribly, you haven't gotten a single point of primary the entire game, like, then it's worth it to take for the ritual. But like,
Right.
never in singles, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the last game, which is Terraform, also on GW.
Yeah. Same GW layout. Oh man, this was a funny game. It was Ironstorm Ultramarines. My opponent, like, he asked him, like, my opponent was smart enough. He asked me, like, do you know, like, what your B spots unit kills on average? And I answered to him, I pointed at Gilliman. And I just said that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, mathematically, it will on average do 10 mortals to Gilliman and kill him. And he's like, all right, well, you just, when you move them, call them Gilliman killers for me. And I'm like, sure. This was a crazy game. Like, he just had so many 10 wound, 12 wound vehicles, which is exactly what my army loves picking up. This was my only opponent that actually, like, this was actually probably, he played the best out of all of them. He played this matchup like nearly perfectly, and I still got a 30-point win. But like, he had Vindicators that he would use smoke on, and like, he actually used smoke just for the cover, basically. And on a 2-up save vehicle, smoke AOC, even though I'm at AP3 on rocket launches, the Vindicator still survived because they go down to AP1, he's saving on 3s. Like, and a lot of people get dissuaded by, like, oh, I'm not getting the stealth out of smoke because he has +2 to hit. And it's just like, sure, you can think that way.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and the other thing is, because it's not the nerf to AOC, doesn't, I think, affect you quite as much because you don't have he, in the mirror match, for example, he probably had the amount of shooting where AOC felt like it was almost useless, right? Because he can just line up 6 activations into one thing. Okay, you AOC the first thing, now the next 5 things don't care. You don't quite have that many things that can follow on. You have like 3.
I have 3 shooting pieces. So like, you're looking at, like, the real one is like, if you AOC the Flash Gitz, like, they're actually useless in that matchup. But otherwise, it's just like, it's one of those things where like, I have another Tank Buster unit for redundancy, and that's about it. But still, the cover that you're getting, like, throughout the phase with smoke is genuinely really good. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you have the choice between AOC and smoke, you just use smoke into this army.
Yeah, and that does persist.
Yeah. And the other thing is that using smoke, like, it forces me to still use my rules. Because the thing is, if I don't use my +1 to hit in my command phase, well, then I am extra screwed, because now I'm back to hitting on 5. And somewhere I really don't want to be.
Right. Yeah. So just knowing that it's going to happen, you couldn't have a different order that you could choose. Did he have any, like, countercharge threats? I mean, was he running dreads?
Calgar. He was actually running
Calgar.
Calgar Company Heroes.
Yeah, sure. It's a super annoying thing to deal with.
Funny enough, like, this was the first one where I won in Orcs fashion of, by round 5, I'm basically about to get tabled. But I've just gone so far ahead on points that it's good. The big thing, so I did the same exact thing that I was describing that I did in Bridgehead with the kill rig redeploy, except this time I just pulled the kill rig into reserves because he didn't have a lot of stuff. So like, by turn 3, I could probably make space for it by just shooting his list to pieces, and I did. It was one of the things where it was just like the crazy one is I popped the once per game lethal hits on flash hits because you have an ammo runt with them. I used the ammo runt on Overwatch just for the hell of it, and I overwatched a Gladiator Lancer.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah, it does. That Gladiator evaporated as a result. Like it, because the thing is, that's how you play around AOC in the Marines matchup with flash kits. Is you just Overwatch with them because they can't use AOC in their movement phase.
Yeah, that's right. It is very annoying for me. I have defensive strats that I also wish I could use in my movement phase.
Yeah, no. So playing around over with I like most of my CP budget was basically built around probably about 3 to 4 Overwatches over the course of a game, just because it's that strong of a stratagem. That's also why I wanted that many Grotz units to just guarantee me that CP as well. Because the reality is that I'm scoring just about any secondary I draw with this list. So I don't really need or I actually kind of really need the CP from Grotz because I'm not getting it off of cards.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Well, that sounds like a fun. So okay, I gotta ask, how many of the objectives did you terraform?
One.
Oh, just one.
No. So funny enough, we actually really tried to basically we really interacted with each other a lot on the terraforms. I actually the other play I made was I used Boss Snickrop. I put him out in the open just a little bit and just dared my opponent to either bring down his Inceptors or get a 6 to advance with Marnius Calgar. My opponent had to put down his Inceptors.
Yeah.
And suddenly that was his one piece that could really ruin my day. That was the one piece down on the board, killed it with tank busters, and then charged the rest of his army. And suddenly that was his one piece of agency that I just forced down there, and I forced him to interact with me. Otherwise, I just run away with a turn 2, or no, I run away with a turn 1 terraform. Otherwise.
Yeah. No, you gotta stop that.
Yeah. And my opponent did the same, and I actually had to bring out some awkward stuff to try to kill some intercessors that just basically moved and did a terraform.
Yep. I actually, when Pariah Nexus came out, I didn't love Terraform. Now I like it more.
It's one of my favorite missions. I loved it from the start. I'm like, this is actually such a fun mission because it really rewards proactive armies, but it also rewards having answers to proactive stuff too. So it really forces interaction in a way that is just really fun for Warhammer.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to call it the opposite of the ritual, but it's like the opposite of the unfun of the ritual. It's just it's an action involving objectives that really promotes interaction. And it's it's way better than Scorched Earth.
It's way better than Scorched Earth. I totally agree, because Scorched Earth things almost never get burned unless it's you're going second or you're running away with it.
It creates a stalemate game or creates a table your opponent game, versus Terraform creates a very strategic even game where you can be. Orcs play Terraform insanely well. I think they're probably one of the best armies in the game at playing Terraform, just because Orcs is an attrition army, and we basically portion out our stuff that we throw at you, and then just kind of go ration it out from there. So having an objective that scores me points even after I'm tabled is amazing.
Yeah, totally. The other thing I don't like about Scorched Earth is that you can only get a 10 on primary just from holding, and so it is still hard enough to actually burn an objective, because you're not going to burn your safe one. You're only going to burn.
Oh no, yeah.
And so that means that people are just getting tens, and then they're totally not incentivized to come at each other. But yeah, well,
Yeah.
congrats on 5-1. I mean, that's fantastic. And I mean, this was your first LVO, right? So
Yeah, first LVO, first major. Like I done some GTs before, but like no, it's definitely one. It makes me want to go back. Except I will say, anybody who's going to a major, I'm the only one among my friends that did not get sick. Hand sanitizer after every game. Literally, put an alarm to remind yourself to hand sanitizer at all the round end times. Like
you
it
know,
will save you.
I do know some people who got sick, but I don't know anybody who got a flu. I know people who got food poisoning unrelated, just
Hmm.
being in Vegas. I didn't get sick. Fingers crossed, not yet.
Thankfully, yeah.
Um, so I don't know, but yeah, it is a thing. I mean, the curse of the con is a real thing. I do think that that if you have the hand sanitizer, that goes a long way because it is an exceptionally well ventilated space at the Rio Convention Center. I've definitely been at other majors and super majors where it felt super stuffy. This did not feel like that at all. It was actually quite comfortable.
I was actually really impressed with that. Yeah. I will say Vegas air was so dry in general though. Was not ready for that.
Yeah, pack a humidifier if you can.
I'm probably bringing one my next go around. Other thing I learned was like pack your lunch and then like the amount of stuff that you do just to preserve like your bodily health. The hand sanitizer. The honestly, the other one is that I wish I did. I want to make sure I get a room with a bathtub next time and just bring some Epsom salt. I'm a tall guy. Leaning over tables hurts, and I'm playing Tactical Brigade. I am playing the entire round. I don't get my opponent's turns off.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. It is nice that it is carpeted at least, but yes, I remember to sit down if you can. Obviously, in your case, you were not able to. It's funny thing for me is having kids at home. My sciatica was much better having 5 days off from the baby. I didn't have to pick him up at all, and like I come home and I start having to like keep him from hurting himself, grabbing him at weird angles, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, my back hurts again. It isn't Warhammer that's doing it. It's actually the baby that's doing it.
Yeah, at least there's that affirmation there. Uh, Speaking of, the cat is playing with bits
Ah,
too. So,
yeah. So
um,
did you stay at the Rio?
yeah, stayed at the Rio. Because every other hotel is so expensive. I do have friends that live in Vegas, and I'm just gonna drive to the venue from their house next time I go.
Yeah, I didn't stay at the Rio, but I kept my army at the Rio with Clint. And day two, we left the room, 40 minutes ahead of time, and I got to my game 2 minutes before, like at 8:58, because it took us so long to get down the elevator. They had like two functioning elevators for the entire tower. It was nuts.
Yeah, that was. I will say the other thing is like the breakfast lines were like so long. Um, we did the Chick-fil-A. Basically, I actually like the decision I made. They had a yogurt parfait, and I'm like, all right, fine, parfait me up, and like they had fruit and stuff. Genuinely eat your fruits and veggies while you're going to a Warhammer tournament. Get those B vitamins in there.
Yeah, my hack is I like almonds, and that is I pack almond because they have everything that you need. They got your protein and your fat and your carbs and your fiber, and I just was munching on that in between every game. I did not even try to eat any of the food at the Rio.
Yeah, that is. It's one of those things where it's like it is, especially at a major, it is important to plan for.
Yeah, I don't know
And
about you.
like
Yeah, so continue.
it's oh no, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I don't know about you. I like get so amped, which I'm trying to work on. I lose my appetite, and so I like have to force myself to eat.
I am similar, except more like I get so amped I forget to eat. And it's just like, oh, I should take care of myself right now.
Absolutely.
Um
Yeah. And I remember hearing at the end of like round 5, I think it was, where like on the PA, the FLG staff was like, if you are undefeated, make sure you go get dinner right now because you will not have time before the shadow round.
Yeah, or and then right before the shadow round, they also said like if you are in the shadow round, like make sure that you what's it called? Make sure that you have a friend come bring you food and
Yeah,
water.
right.
I'm probably gonna get the gallon jugs of water for next one. Just
I brought my cart and I picked up a like 36 pack of, little bottles of water. And every round I made sure I told my opponent, I'm like, if you need water, let me know. I got water for you. Cause
yeah.
that's a good tip for if you want to improve the social experience. Just, it's a simple way to,
Absolutely.
build some goodwill.
That's yeah. Having like, I remember at the teams tournament that we played at, that was also similar. Like, one of my opponents had a cart, and they had granola bars, crackers, and drinks on the cart, and it was just it's such an icebreaker, and that's the thing I think like genuinely, I think the people that win at Warhammer don't just win because they are good at the game. It's also because they are good at being social. And I think that's really, really important to make that distinction. Because one, you can be social in the way that you have to stand your ground. Two, you can be social in the way that you have to negotiate, that you have to set precedents, and you have to be able to do this thing, right? And I think like that's what really differentiates the good players. Watching the shadow round and watching the finals at LVO, you can see the way I think Jack Harpster, I think, is my favorite example of this because I think he communicates the best out of all of them too. Of just like, oh, I don't think there's a way that you're making this charge, but you can take a look if you really want, or just logically like just talking to his opponents the whole time. You should be losing your voice at the end of a Warhammer tournament. If you're not, then you're not socializing enough, in my opinion.
Totally. All right. So to sum it up, thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, it sounds like you want to go back. So
Yeah, I want to go back. I want to get best in faction. I think my big goal this year, though, I'm not. I think I'm gonna just because I work weekends, so I only make it out for like GTS and big stuff. I want to win an event this year. I think that's like my big goal.
totally. So what? Any OGTs you have planned for sure?
I'm gonna be going to the OPGT, um, as well as I think if there's a November one, or I'm not sure what's happening for SonomaCon this year.
I think it
Um,
might be another teams event.
yeah, but I'll go to the teams event, and then I think like just a couple GTs, like I'll give it a go. I want to at least get best overall or best what is it, or best general. I will say to everybody, if until you finish X and one, do not agonize over winning an event. Um, like the thing is, you're gonna get diced out of one of these games, uh, but you can pretty easily control getting X and one comparatively. I find X and one or X and two, like just honestly, the thing is, those records keep you in the running for best overall, and I think your paint is something that you can control. So like best overall is a really good first goal to go for.
Totally. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope to see you soon at an event or at least a practice game or at the very least a TTS game. We'll have to do that sometime.
Absolutely.
And thanks for coming on and hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nick, for having me.